Hi guys, I'm the Impaired Grappler and welcome to my podcast. Today we have a very special guest for our 33rd episode. It's Nick Patterson. You might recognize him from a few viral videos over the past year. MMA gym owner versus Vic Pol, where he disallowed entry from the health officers and Vic police here in Melbourne at his gym. So basically, using words and legal language and that sort of stuff. So we talk about young Nick, his MMA and fight history, his injuries, rehab and training modalities that he's figured out over the years. We talk about the law, Strawman, the Constitution and Black's Law Dictionary and some interesting words in there. We talk about God and the Bible and how that relates to the law. And we talk about lessons that he's learned from coaching, the meaning of the number 33, this being the 33rd episode, whether it's evil or not, or Illuminati or whatever. We talk about homeschooling, as he's been doing that for a few years, and sort of being targeted by the police at the protests and at his gym and all that sort of stuff. So hope you guys enjoy, and we'll catch you on the other side. Us. Hi guys, I'm the Impaired Grappler, and welcome to my podcast. Today we have a very special guest. It's Nick Patterson. You may have seen a viral video from over a year ago now, about the lockdowns and the police trying to enter the MMA gym, and it was a titled MMA gym versus Vic Pol, I think. And he's been doing a lot of work the last year or so, and it's Nick Patterson. How are you, Nick?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. And this will likely be episode 33, so Illuminati confirmed and all that. But
Oh, yeah.
we may discuss that later. But
Did I cover my eye and
just
just
like do all the
yeah,
symbols
yeah,
and triangles
symbols?
and everything. Like we could get into that doing the whole hand symbol thing. But so just wanted to touch on you were like basically in MMA and trying out for UFC, and you got your own gym. So can you talk about
Yeah.
sort of the young Nick and sort of getting into MMA and sort of the fighting, and what sort of inspired you to go down that road, and sort of what led you
Yeah.
to trying for the UFC and all that, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah. And I have to excuse me, my daughter's a little bit loud, so hopefully I don't know how much they can hear. She's
That's
two,
fine.
so
Yeah, that's fine.
terrible twos.
Yeah, terrible too.
Well, yeah, no, I always liked martial arts and fighting as young as I can remember, and I always thought that I would fight when I was older. So I think the thought precedes the action, and that thought was in my mind very young. And then I had an opportunity to train with a man named Ed Bavlock, who's just a very inspiring coach. He's from Boston, but he lived in Melbourne. He's moved to Ireland just recently, but he's over 20 years in Melbourne. And he was my coach. I started training with him. I trained at a number of different places from a young age. I'd never really learnt martial arts in a complete way until I started to train with him. And he was a Muay Thai kickboxer that just embraced MMA, loved it, loves the wrestling. And I started training with him. And I said to him once, I said, look, I would like to do what you do when I'm older, and I'm experienced. And he said, well, I'd like to be a coach. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And I ended up following sort of his path to some degree. Obviously, it's a different path now, but I followed that path and I started to fight. And I had something in me that pushed me to want to compete. I really wanted to compete. And it was, I think, I don't know my father. And I think a lot of young men that don't know their dads have like this issue where they have to kind of prove that they're a man, right? It's like I don't know what it is, but it definitely was there. So I found that fighting was a way out of the mundane. If I can make a living out of that sport, then I can find a way out of doing something mundane. I don't want to work in a factory and just spend my life doing something that I hate that's mediocre. Now, I'm not putting anyone down if they do that, because you often can make a lot more money doing things like that, but I just didn't want to do that. So it was way out. So I went all in, started fighting, and I was pretty good at it because I believed I could accomplish, because it's about the belief. You've got to believe. That's where the heart comes from. And and then I fought some pretty big fights, like against some pretty tough opponents. I fought Dan Hooker, in a title fight. It was my first ever lightweight fight. I cut weight to lightweight. I really struggled with it because I'm a type 1 diabetic. I was told medically I shouldn't be doing that, but I would do it anyway. I'd make the big weight cut. And I ended up getting a UFC opportunity in the end to fight on a Brisbane card. And it was just a bit late for me. I didn't want to do it anymore. So you kind of, with fighting, you need to be all in. Yeah, you need to be 100%. And when I was so aware of all the other things going on in the world that my mind was divided into two camps. And the camp of, there's psychopaths controlling our world that are stealing from us, and we're going to have some sort of big thing that's going to collapse our economy. All these thoughts were in my mind, and I was researching. I was down the rabbit hole, and it was very hard for me to really focus. And they gave me like 10 days to lose 10 kilos for a fight, and I'm just like, not interested. So that's where I that was sort of the end. And then I had a prayer before my last MMA fight, and I just asked that God would help me to quit fighting and retire, because I retired 2 times previous, and didn't actually retire. I'd retire, then I'd come back. And then I had a prayer that I'd be able to finish fighting and start fighting the real fight. And all my strength was taken out of me when I had that fight. I fought a guy named Joshua Calvo from I think it was from Oregon or Washington State. It's from that top, the west coast, northern west coast of the US. And I just wasn't able to perform, and I got beat in the first round. And I think God's got a sense of humor, because that shouldn't have happened to me, but it did, and that was it. My ranking went from being very high. I might have still been ranked number 1 in 2 weight classes of unsigned fighters. Now it's gone down very low. I'd already kind of lost the drive to fight. It's like, I'm not going to fight to get that back up again. And that was the end.
Yeah.
And and then I started on a bit of a different path.
So cutting weight and being diabetic, what issues did you have? Was that in that fight as well? That you had some issues?
I can't remember if that was a welterweight fight or not. I don't know. That wasn't there was no, not that I can remember. There was no, okay. I just went to fight this guy, and I just didn't have, I just wasn't on at all. It was like my strength was taken away. Yeah. Yeah.
Good. A message from on high, I guess. Yeah. So,
I mean, he makes men and breaks them, and he can, I think of that really famous quote from that movie Braveheart: God makes men who they are, and I don't think he wanted me to be doing that anymore, and I didn't want to be doing that in the cage anymore. I wanted to, I was getting pulled out to do something different, and there's all the multitude of voices that are screaming in different directions. Do this, and it's hard to you go, if I keep going, like, what, maybe I should give it another good go, and because I got that opportunity and to fight in the biggest show, I'm on their radar. But then other voices would say, yeah, but you're not really all in now. And I'm like, yeah, that's true, I'm not. So I had to make that decision, but I was right on the edge.
So what was the decision?
Either way. So I had to pray for it to be able to help me to make the right decision, which I knew internally the right decision was I needed to retire now. I had 3 children at that stage. I've got 4 now, married. I had done enough. I didn't need to do it anymore.
Yeah. So praying helped you make that final decision, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. And so you went through your history, but can you talk about just while we're talking about the MMA side of things, your history of injuries and like with regards to prevention or rehab or any training modalities that you found that help with injuries, or like what?
Yeah. So I've had quite a few. Yeah, I've had quite a few surgeries, shoulder surgeries, knee surgeries. I've had some bad injuries. What I found was wrestling was always the biggest, most dangerous culprit for the bad injuries that put you out.
Yeah.
someone takes, just throws you, or there's a big takedown. Jiu-Jitsu, not so much, because, you're not up high, you're not standing up, and you're not getting, with all the gravity with someone on top of you. So most of I had cracked my sternum once, and someone threw me and landed on top of me. I got thrown and had my shoulder ripped out of its socket. I got thrown by Callum Potter, 'cause he's another guy that I fought. He's a good fella. And he threw me once, because after we fought, then he started training with us for every week. It was once a week he'd train with us. And and he threw me once, and like with the judo throw, and he snapped my ankle. Like, it just, so it's those kinds of movements that were very dangerous. So what I've tried to really focus on after having many injuries and learning slowly, because I'm a slow learner with some things, instead of doing live wrestling all the time, just drill takedown for takedown, takedown for takedown, takedown for takedown, because that drilling, we've measured it on the heart rate monitor. It actually gets your heart rate up higher, even though it doesn't feel like it's higher. And it's something to do with, if you're doing a full takedown, like a double leg takedown to the ground, then the other guy does it to you, you get up. That often there's a lot more output than there would be with going live, because a lot of the live stuff would be just clenched up against the cage, right? You just clenched up there for a long. That might be half of a round, where you could have done 20 takedowns each, full takedowns. And then you're getting better at your takedowns, and that becomes more seamless. But your output's higher, and the injuries just, they're not going to be there if you're doing controlled movements over and over. You're not going to injure yourself. So that's what I started to do. And I wish I had learned that earlier on. But sometimes you've got to go through those painful injuries to learn, and that's how I train my guys now in my gym. I train them to do more drilling. You can do high intensity drilling too, but you're going to get more output. You're going to get better at your technique. They're the same as, you don't go sparring all the time, get hit in the head all the time. It's not good. Just do lots and lots of pads, lots of pad work, good pad work too. Yeah. If you look at Floyd Mayweather and that, he's not sparring all the time. He's pads, lots of pads though. And that's the way you get your boxing better, right? So it's the same thing with the wrestling. And wrestling obviously is I think the most taxing on the body.
Yeah, and you're getting your volume up and minimizing injury, and this makes perfect sense. Yeah, and it's always good to have partners that are willing to train with you and not just want to. When you got a training partner, not just want to smash each other every time, but So was any kind of rehab modalities that you found that you thought are really beneficial, bang for the buck, like a device or just any kind of modality that you could think of?
Oh, look, one thing that was really good was the hot and cold bath, ice bath into warm, cold, warm. That was very good for recovery. From that, that lactic acid build up, that soreness, that rusty feeling in your body.
The DOMS, the day after, the delayed onset of muscular soreness, I found after wrestling, the hot cold bath was perfect for that.
Yeah, I would rate that as probably the biggest bang for its buck.
Yep. All right. Yeah, cool. There's another podcast I haven't released yet. We spoke about that too. So, it's pretty. It's cool that it's useful for a lot of people. So, all right, getting back into, you mentioned it before, so we can touch on it now, like with regards to the Bible and God, like what have you always been going to church and following the Bible, and in your opinion, what's the importance of the Bible?
Okay, so I guess
just for the layman, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have always believed in God. My mother taught me to believe in God, even though she never took me to church, never read the Bible with me. Never went to church until I was, I think, 14. I saw someone in the city, and I was with a friend, and then they started taking me to church. So I just started talking about God, and then I started going to another church when I was 16, and then but as young as I can remember, my mother taught me to pray, and I just prayed religiously, morning and night, pretty much every night. There might have been the odd one that I'd forget, but I just did, and I knew I needed to do that. And I've actually, I think it's just something was inbuilt in me, because even when I was about 6 or 7, and I was sharing this story the other day with someone on a live, and I remember because we grew up in the housing commission flats, so it's a rough part of town, and some of the kids, including my cousin, who was 5 years older than me, and all these kids were older than me, and I was the youngest. I was like, I think I was 7, and they wanted to smash a window of a church, and I just went, no, and I thought, I've got to speak up. Now, I'd never been to church, and I'd never read the Bible, but I knew that was God, right? In my mind, that was God. I can't do that. So I stood up to everyone. I said, guys, you can't do this. You can't smash a church window. Now, for all I know, that church might have been evil. I don't know, right? But in my mind, it represented God. And then I thought I was going to get beat up by, or picked on, or teased by all these older kids, but they ended up saying, "Oh no, he's right," and then they didn't smash the church window. They ended up smashing somebody else's window, their house window. I didn't feel so bad, right, about that. I thought, well, at least I stopped them from doing the greater evil. So it was obviously it's been on my heart since as young as I can remember. And I guess the relevance of the Bible is if you read it, if you really read it, the concepts, and don't just take what's written in there and have it interpreted for you by some man or some woman that claims to be the authority. If you actually look at what the basic concepts in there are, they're true. And I think anyone that reads those will be able to find that, yes, this is true. You know, there's something, you know, the fact that you've got a conscience, something inside of you that tells you the difference between right and wrong, that's inbuilt into your DNA. That is the proof that you know, the fact that God's name is I am. He says, I am, you know, or Jesus is the word, which means the idea, the logos, the concept. That a word, spoken, written, whatever, is just conveying an idea or a concept. And an idea or a concept requires intelligence, which is the name of God. I am. I exist. I am. So these concepts, if you look at it from the basic root, enables us to understand who we are and who God is, and that the mind is the kingdom of God. You know, the kingdom of God is within you. You know, God dwells within you. And if we realize that, we realize there's this whole internal world that we're probably not so focused on because we're being distracted by all the external things. But a lot of people focus on the external things, you know, like it says, you can't serve God and mammon just means money. You can't serve the external stuff and the internal. So, and you see that with sort of what's going on now. There's people that are really digging deep inside, and they're looking at you know, their conscience, and they're thinking, I don't agree with what's going on. I don't believe in this, and I'm gonna risk being given a big fine, going to jail, being hated by people that I know, losing my job because of something that I believe in that's inside of me and it's not external. They're making a choice between the external world and the internal, and they're recognizing the value of the internal world. And I think the Bible is the key for people to understand that. It's just you've got to get past the language barrier because it's been written in 400-year-old King Jamesian English.
Yeah, and because I've started reading the Bible with a couple of just different groups, but like nothing really formal. We just sort of pick a theme and a few passages from that theme and just read it and talk about it and discuss it. But yeah, you're right. Like everything I've read so far, it's like it's all true, whether it's parables and metaphors and that, but it's all true. And then you see it happening today, like just the lessons that are in there, and it's, you know, it's pretty amazing. It's like this was written 2,000 years ago and it's as relevant today as ever, and there's a reason that's it's so powerful and so many people believe in it. But then you get into which version and then translations, but
well, there are some terrible translations like the translation that Kanye West is it's his name instead of God, like that has happened, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, like yeah, because I just read in Revelations, no one should change the word. Was it Revelations? Towards the end, the last book.
Don't add to or take away.
Yeah. Otherwise, you will suffer what's in this book and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Okay. So, and then like relating the especially the King James Bible, but the Bible to law. That's basically where we in the West where we get our law from.
It is where, and Yeah, but then now they're lawless now. Like it doesn't matter that they make contradictory. Everything contradicts other things, right? We've got certain laws that say X, and then they go, yeah, but you know what? We're going to make laws that say Y that contradict X, and so it doesn't. But that is the basis of law that's the basis of what's in our conscience. It's actually it marries up what's written in there in correct context will marry up with what's on your conscience, which is the light that lighteth every man that comes into the world, which is in John chapter 1. So there's this light in you, this truth in you, the truth and light, and we're meant to let our light so shine. So we're meant to let the truth out so people can see it, which is what the word emotion means. It means to move out. So we've got something inside of us and we've got to express it. That's why we need freedom of expression, political and religious. That's the reason, because we can't serve God and let our light so shine and glorify God if we don't do that. And that's the first commandment: thou shalt have no other gods before me. Okay, so when you understand these things in context, it makes perfect sense. So I went on a bit of a tangent there.
Yeah, that's right. So when was the first time you saw these issues with the law or just how the world's run, I guess, with these evil psychopaths?
Well, it's interesting because I never had any interest in law ever. But about 8 years ago, I got inspired to go, and I don't know why I got inspired to go and start learning law and learning. I watched a video on the Strawman and I thought that's a really interesting concept. Is that true? I started looking at things and I started seeing these capitalized. Why is my name written in capital letters on all of these? Corporate letters that I'm getting from banks, and why isn't it in capital letters? And why is my birth certificate all capital letters on the surname? And I started to think there's something to this. And then I went shopping at a shopping center with my family and my wife, and she wanted to get some things, and I'm not into shopping and all. So I just stayed outside with the kids, and there was this man that looked like he might have been homeless, but he started talking to me about the Strawman, and I thought this is very interesting. So a lot of people were shrugging him off because of the way he looked, but I was more interested in what he had to say. So I had this conversation with him, and he was very intelligent, and he gave me a card to this group called the Community Law Research Group. So I ended up going to that place, and I started to learn about the law and the Constitution, and which was amazing because I'd heard the word Constitution, I didn't really understand anything about it. And I started to learn, there's limits on what the government can and can't do, and the government's not doing those things. And I think that's what opened me up to the injustice, because I've got a thing with justice. I can't accept injustice just happening. It just is. I have to, if I can do something, I have to do something. So I started to learn everything that I could. And look, I'm not one of the minds for the Constitution and the law, but there's certain things that have really stood out to me. And then I've years later, when all of this madness, sort of with this pandemic, which anyway, I won't even get into it. But when that happened, I was able to recall all of this stuff, and I was able to quote so much of it off the top of my head. It's interesting because in the scriptures, the Bible, it says in John chapter 14, verse 26, I think it is, but the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, and the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance whatsoever I've said unto you. And I went, oh, that's just happening. Right at the moment I need that, bang, the thought comes in my mind and I know what to say. And I was winning these battles. And obviously you've seen sort of some of those footage. I've had a number of videos that went viral where we basically were able to school the police and the officers in the law. And if I didn't spend those years learning this stuff, when I didn't even have an interest in it, something was on my heart, told me to do it, then years later, I have all this information that I didn't even know I had remembered, but it was coming back to me at that very instant. I was able to just say things, acts that I didn't even know. Oh, that's right, that act. And then I'll just say it. I'd say it's in this act, the Statute Law Revision Act, 1973, and they removed the words Commonwealth from there. I was just flowing, and I thought, wow, this is God's using me to do this, because he's bringing it to my remembrance. So I didn't even know that I couldn't remember these things, and then they all just came to me at that moment. Same thing happened when I had an interaction with the police at Flagstaff Gardens, and then I was later assaulted on the same day and taken, and I was put in jail.
I saw them recording you as well. Like they're trying to learn. I think they were trying to learn off you, so they know how to actually be able to combat what you're saying. But anyway, then they assaulted you at the end on the way home, which was a bit annoying. But yeah, I noticed they were there with their video camera recording what you were saying.
Yeah, well, they always have when they have large numbers of police, they have usually they have like their own kind of media, and they have these special cameras that are on a stick that they use. Yeah, they're like on a stick and they come out like this. I don't know what they're doing with it. Probably facial recognition, all the rest of it as well.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But I actually had the COVID marshals turn up to my gym yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had a bit of a chat. Did a bit of a video as well.
Okay.
On that one. Quite funny. Yeah.
Okay.
And they were very, very rude when they, the way that they talk to you, and when you start to give it back to them. And I'm not abusive with them at all. Just said, look, I'll provide what you want, but you've just got to provide the grounds for it. Some evidence that there's some grounds that I actually have to provide you with anything. Show me. And then they turn their back on you and start being really rude. And so I just called them out. I said, no, because you've come to my place, and you're giving me a hard time. And then when I start giving it back, you turn your back on me and you can't even talk to me and give me the respect of a man. And I think that's what's happened with our society. We're seeing that the people that do love money more than what's inside of them are the ones that will gladly take on a job like being a COVID marshal to shut people's businesses down based on technicalities, because and I'm sure they get paid very good money too, because it's not something that morally marries up with your conscience to do that to people.
Yeah, well, that's it. And like with regards, you mentioned the Constitution, the importance of the Constitution, even though, like you said, they're not following the Constitution. So it's like they keep not following the law, but then bringing in reasons to change the law because they haven't followed the law originally, or they do new mandates and legislation and all that stuff. But it's like, well, if you followed that piece of law, we wouldn't require this bill that you're touting at the moment.
Well, it's interesting. It makes the whole thing completely invalid. So Daniel Andrews has been directing, and the chief health officer, they've been directing the police in the performance of their duties. That's inconsistent with Section 51 of the Victoria Police Act, the definition of a constable at common law. And you look at the actual definition of constable, because it says all police have the duties and powers of a constable at common law. So there's no definition there for constable at common law in the Act. So you go to the Australian Legal Dictionary and it says a constable cannot be directed by the government or senior police as to who they should or should not prosecute. They're answerable to the law and the law only. And then there's case law for that. And the case law it's a UK case. It's been cited in Australian cases many times. R versus Commissioner of the Police Metropolis Ex parte 1968. And in this particular case, and it's been cited many times, the police were being directed by the judiciary, and then they weren't able to direct them to do anything other than to write a report. But we've got the police literally going around arresting people, giving fines, shutting down businesses from the government. But they have independent authority. So basically the police have just submitted to the wishes of the government, even though they're not meant to be being directed by the government. And that's in case law, that's in the Victoria Police Act, and that's in the definition of the office that they hold. So everything's wrong. Everything's wrong. There's no law anymore. They just do whatever they want. And then they write a bill allowing them to do the things that they were doing against the law in the first place. Daniel Andrews should be put in jail. But then how do you get the police to put him in jail when they're taking the orders from him? Well, you see, that's called acting under dictation. That's how you get a dictatorship. It's when the people that have authority over their office, independent authority, allow some inferior, not inferior, some superior authority that doesn't have discretion in their office to dictate to them. That's exactly what's happened.
Yeah. And like with regards, like the legalese and the language, and like in Black's Law Dictionary with the inversion of the words or double meaning of words, were there any words that you've come across, like you said, constable, but any words that you come across where the meaning is the opposite that you well, the most interesting ones that you can think of, like
Oh,
understanding.
interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, like I would like to say
Interesting.
favorite, but like that's probably not the right word. But yeah.
Well, what an interesting one is when they say, where do you live? And you say, well, I live in my body, right? That's what I
Mm,
say to them. I live in my body because my spirit lives in my body.
mm,
They go, no, where's your address? I go, I don't wear dresses. I don't want you
mm,
to add address to me. They go, will you be getting any advice, legal advice? I go, I've got enough vices. I don't need to be added any extra vices. This is what
mm,
these words really mean.
mm,
Where do you reside? I go, I'm not a resident. I'm not a resident. Like, it's things like that people need to know. Like, if they say, where do you live? And you say, I live at, whatever, Johnson Street, 51 Johnson Street, well, if you're not at that address, but they're asking, where do you live? You're basically saying, I'm not alive. And that's what statute law is. You're putting yourself in statute law. It's a trick question.
mm,
So if I say, where do you live? And you say, I live over there at this address, you go, oh, well, you're not there now. So that technically, if you're not there now, you're not alive. And
mm.
that's what, that it goes back to like corporation, which means corpse speaking. It's all the dead body speaking. So the whole language, actually, if you look in the Black's Law Dictionary for cite, the word cite, like for citation, and I don't know if you've got it there with you, but it's basically,
not here. Yeah.
it means to summon the person, and the person's obviously the corporate entity.
Mm.
So to summon so what that really means is to summon the corpse, the speaking corpse. It's like a horror movie.
Necromancy.
It's necromancy, and it's interesting because the Bible very clearly says you're not meant to let a necromancer live, right? But they've got us to engage in necromancy, the whole of society.
Mm.
And you try to tell the people in the churches that they just can't see it. They don't understand the relevance of what's written in there and how to connect it to our modern world. The churches, most of them have become incorporated, right? Well, once you incorporate, that's what that means. It means to become corporate, or it's the dead body speaking, right? So they've incorporated, and now because they're under statute jurisdiction, they're now taxable. So then they apply, which means to beg for a tax-free exemption with the government. That adds the government into the church's in trust. And now you've given that which is holy, which was the church, over to the government, you've given that which is holy to the dogs. And then they have a foot in the door of your church. They can control and steer which way the church, goes and how it's going to go through. So you see how that's a huge problem that we have in the Christian world, and why so many of these Christian people are just going along with all these mandates. It's because they're being told to by their leaders who have entered into trust with the government.
Mm. Yeah, and then and then they take offence a lot of the times if you mention something against their worldview. But it's like, there could be corruption within your church, and if you're not willing to see it, like individual priests might be fine, and there's some priests out there that are really good. But if the institution's been corrupted from the top down, it makes it very difficult. And they change the hierarchy of where God, the church, where man is, and government. Like man is supposed to be above government, but under God.
Yeah.
But they're putting the church above man, and then government above the church, which
it's
that's inverted.
Maxim. There's a maxim. The beginning, the principle of a thing is its beginning. So the principle, and I think it's the stream cannot rise above its source is another. And basically what it means is God created us, so we can't become greater than God.
Yeah.
Because he created us. He's the source of us. The I amness, the consciousness that's in us comes from God, who is I am. Right? That's what he says to Moses. He says, who are you? He says, I am. I am that I am. Right? And that's the thing. And then the government's created by man, and then the government says, no, you're below because you've agreed to it. And it's because corrupt men, because the government has no ability to think, the corporations can't think, they don't live, there's no life in them. It's only the people that give life to it, that work in it. And then what they do is they create something on paper, which it's not living, and then they get you to sign and agree to it and say, I'm going to be part of this fake world, this fake on paper world, the legal world. And then by doing that, they then because of their own. Your word is your bond. Whatever you say, you're meant to do. You've agreed to it. That's why they haven't put themselves above you. What they've done is they've tricked us into being below them. It's called capitis diminutio, and it's the legal term is to diminish your capacity. That's what the capitalized name is. It's capitis diminutio. Yeah. So they do that, and they've been doing this for a long time, and we just don't. We're too naive, I think, and we've been fed really well. Lots of bread and circuses, lots of distractions. We don't have a clue about what's really going on.
Yeah, for sure. So because a lot of because with politics, it's about trust, and then if you don't trust the government, then if they're breaking the law, then like who do we call, kind of thing. And it's like, well, there's no legal recourse for like what's it called, having private militias and stuff like that in this country, is there?
We have been completely demoralized in this country, where we don't have any freedom. We've got no freedom to defend ourselves. I mean, we can at law defend ourselves, but we don't have any ability to do it in a real way.
Yeah,
you've got your fists, and that's about it. You're not allowed to do anything else. You can't have guns and weapons to defend yourself. They took those away. And even then, if you do have a punch a police officer who's assaulting you, all the police they know how the system works, and they will just write false statements and put you in jail, which is what they did to me. And I don't know if you've seen. I think you've seen that footage.
Yeah.
And I shared the footage. I said, this is what they did to me. I shared their own body cam footage showing them run across the road and start punching up my mate. And then I went in there to defend him, and then they just 20 of them, and there's like 4 of us. Yeah, we got assaulted. So this is the problem, that we don't have all the power. Really has been taken away from us because we've allowed it to be taken away from us. It's not because they had the power to take it. The small few cunning people that are incredibly corrupted, and probably mostly sociopaths and psychopaths in government, they couldn't have taken it without us consenting to it. So we've allowed them to take, we got to see, the guns are so bad. We've got to, let's hand our guns in. It's like, well, that was a big lie. That was a big lie. And obviously I'm not going to be conspiratorial. I'm just going to say that, all the criminals have guns, right? All the bad guys have guns. It's the only people that gave their guns back and don't have guns are the people that would only use them for a righteous purpose.
Yeah, that's sort of what I saw at the time, and I was at uni. It was pretty scary, but I was like, this is one step this is what Hitler did, the first thing Hitler did,
Yeah,
so it's like, and people were like, you're crazy, it's like, well, I don't know. And like, look where we are now. So what's the role of the Australian Peacemakers, and like, what's the goal there? And
well, it comes back to 2 words in the Hebrew, hatat, which is the word for repent, which just means, but hatat is the word, not repent, the word for sin, which means to miss the mark. So we have the word sin in the English, but it comes from the word in the Hebrew, which is hatat, which just means to miss the mark. So you're off course. And the word repentance, which is the word shub in Hebrew, which means to turn back and get on course. So it's about getting people are like, we've got to do something, and they've got all this energy and they're active. Let's go and stop this evil government. It's like, well, okay, this is the way to have a victory there, is we have to start walking in the right direction, because your rights truly do come from doing what's right. The reason we've lost our rights is because it's actually in the first clause in the Constitution. It says relying upon the blessings of Almighty God. And you can see in our society, we've turned away from God. You just look at I was showing someone the other day at our house. We're talking about the demoralisation of our society. And I showed them that Cardi B film clip. I said, kids watch this. Like, this is evil, like pure evil. And our friend was like, that is so bad. I didn't even know about this. I said, yeah, this is bad stuff. They've turned us into animals, right? So if we're not going to be able to govern ourselves, we'll get someone to govern us. And that's why they want us to go and be as depraved as possible, because that takes us away from God, which is where our rights come from. And that's the fundamental principle that I don't think people realize, is if you start doing what's right, things will start to turn out and go right for you. But if you're doing what's wrong and you're living like an animal and cheating on your wife and stealing from your friends and just thinking evil, saying evil, bashing, all the bad things, if you're doing that, and that's a big part of your mind, the thought precedes the action. So that's where it starts from. And you're not going to have your rights and freedoms for very long, because you can't, because you're a danger to us. Because there's a lot of things that we do in society that aren't even against the law, but they're very dangerous. I mean, we've got in the schools, they're teaching kids that they can transition their gender and take hormone blocking, medications. I mean, this is how bad it is. We've got full term abortion. You can be, a woman can be pregnant, and the day before she's going to have the baby, she can abort her. I mean, this is the evil that's in our society. We have really, I think what the Bible says is, in the last days, that the people will have their conscience seared with a hot iron. And I go, I think that's what's happened to us. That's why we've ended up here.
Yeah, and they've used the materialism and also sort of pornography and things like that as a weapon against us to demoralize and dehumanize. Yeah, and that's dehumanize us, I guess, and make us like animals. Yeah, because I realized that a few years ago, just the porn's no good, and then it's been used as weapons before, and
destroys relationships. It destroys your ability to value, to value your wife, especially for men. Definitely, like if they're looking at that stuff, it's going to poison their mind. They're not going to see clearly. And they're going to miss all the beauty that's in this world.
Yeah, for sure. So what have you learnt from, what does coaching and having your gym and all the MMA stuff that you do, how's that coaching actually helped your life?
It's given me it's definitely given me a confidence it's given me the confidence to go and have a crack and test myself out and be willing to go out there and to be a doer, not just a hearer of the words, but a doer. Go out and do it. Put on the, and it's an extreme thing. It's not a mild thing to go and do. It's a big thing. So I guess going out there and being at protests and things and having those interactions with the police, and that is a big thing too. So it's like, but I've already been doing those big things when you go out to the fight in the cage and you've got all these people watching and like you're going to get hurt. That's going to happen. It's a fight. A good close fight. You're both going to get hurt. So I think and then with the coaching side of it, it's, it just gives me a way to reach people and help them.
Yeah.
Because I'm not actually that interested in the fight sport. I'm interested in people, though. I'm interested in people, and I have an interest in fighting and the sport, but it's not like a passion or a love. The sport isn't the passion; it's the people. And if they have an interest in it, it's a way for me to connect with the people. And I think because I've done very well in the sport, a lot of people that may not listen to anyone else will listen to me, and I'm able to plant good seeds in there, because basically your mind's just like a computer. What you put in there, program in, is what it will spit out, right? So the thought precedes the action. We're going to put good thoughts, some good seeds in their mind. If we can do that, we can make good people, help them to be good people.
So would you say that's the biggest thing you've learnt, is how to communicate and teach people?
I've learned a lot, actually, about people, because you get so many different types of people, and you realize how different we really are, where we might look very similar, but we are so, so different as people in the way that we process information and the way we think things and the order of which we go through certain stimulus and information. Like some people go the opposite way around, and someone will see maybe, you'll see someone, what they've done, and then look at why they did that, and then, where they came from. Someone else will go, they look the other way around, and they see that this person came from here. So this is why they did that, and this is what they did. This was the result. So they'll look at it the complete opposite way. And maybe that's even to do with how they're brought up, because some people read, if you read Hebrew, you read the opposite way around, which I know affects the mind where you look at things the other way around. So I don't know. You just find that there's so many variables that we can't explain with people. So you just can't judge. And I've actually found in the last sort of few years that I have been a terrible judge of people, where I've missed, for better and worse. I've often judged people and thought they were better than they were, and then I found out, they did the wrong thing by me and left me in a bad position. But then I've done the opposite as well, and that's what I think, what I like about this whole pandemic situation, because we're seeing people really come out of themselves. It's like there's the unveiling has happened. We're seeing who's really about the truth and who's not. And you can't pretend anymore. Like we're going to see with your actions. Like it says, you shall know them by their fruits in the Bible. Yeah.
Well, a few people are trying hard to pretend, though. They're still trying to hold on to the materialism and stuff. They just won't admit it to themselves. But and so with regards to, I said this would probably be episode 33, so maybe we could touch on that. The number 33, how in society it's been made out to be this evil Illuminati kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that word and the good versus the evil aspects?
Well, I don't think any number's evil. I don't think any color's evil. I don't think any symbol really is evil. It's there's probably is things that are just evil, right? But the most symbols and numbers and things, they just express an idea, and it's how you interpret neutral information. You can look at, it's like someone could be a doctor and they could go and use that knowledge, because it's all knowledge, right? They could use that knowledge to do horrible things, or they could use that knowledge to save people, right? So you could use the knowledge both ways. And I think a lot of both is happening now in mainstream medicine. I think a lot more people are probably getting assaulted and violated with it now. But this is the thing, right? So you've got these people that say, oh, this is our number, or this is our colors. I even did when I first started the Peacemakers, we were using orange vests and fluoro vests and green ones. And then a number of people got on my YouTube channel saying, oh, that's the Masons use those colors. And no, I'm like, look, the Masons didn't create orange and green. God did. And those colors biblically have very good meaning, right? There's beautiful meanings to this. So I said, I can't, I'm not going to believe that something's evil because someone says it's evil. And I'm not going to believe something's good because someone says it's good. It's just how you want to look at things. So this number 33, I mean, it's just a number. You know what I mean? Like there's information being conveyed there. It doesn't mean it's evil. I mean, there's maybe, it says that a third of the angels left their first estate there in the Bible. A third of the angels is 33.3%, And then you got then people go, oh, the 666, the 3 6s, which is, they go, oh, that's the evil number from the Bible. Okay, all right. So then that's maybe two thirds, right? That are left. But it's just how you look at it. Which I just think 666 just means the number of man, and it's conviction of man. Three times 3 of those number is the conviction. But yeah, I mean, numbers like 33, you could look at that and you could find so many ways to interpret that based on the external and internal things that and that you can see. So it's just how you apply knowledge, isn't it?
Would the evil thing be actually actually buying into the fact that it's evil?
Yep, that's how witchcraft works, isn't it? They convince you, that this is going to, this is going to happen, and they tell you your fortune. Maybe they tell you this fortune, this is going to happen, and you go, oh, okay. And because you believe in it, it happens because the thought precedes the action. But if you didn't believe it in the first place, it wouldn't happen. It's like the placebo effect in medicine, right? They tell you, oh, this is going to make you, going to heal you, and because people have, even if it's a small amount of belief in it, they go, oh, well, I think, which is faith, right? They have a small amount of faith, and they have a positive response, and they go, oh, well, there was nothing in it but sugar, but you believe that it was something else. It's the belief that makes it. It's like the Bible says in the Proverbs, it says, as a man thinketh inside, so is he, right? So as you think, you are. Like Jesus said, as you have believed, so be it unto you. And then Job says, that which I feared has come upon me, and then all these awful things happen to him in Job. And then he says, that which I feared has come upon me, right? So it's actually teaching us what you've just said is it's expressing that the internal governs the external world, and I obviously you're aware of that. A lot of people aren't.
Well, what are your thoughts on like the internal like thoughts, like you actually before you actually speak it out loud into the world, whether it's just speaking and only God can hear, I guess, or thinking? Is there a difference between thinking and speaking to? Because I find that once you speak the words out of your mouth, it's almost like a covenant, a promise, whatever you're saying. And like you said before, your word is your
bond.
Yeah, and so, but you can have all the thoughts in the world, but until you actually manifest it, or until you actually speak it, it won't manifest.
The thought precedes the action. So it's like the seed. Like there's many parables in the Bible about the seed. If it's a good seed, they plant the wheat, then they plant the seeds, they plant the tares. The good seed is the good thought, and that produces fruit. That produces things that are good. A good tree brings forth good fruit. A corrupt tree brings forth corrupt fruit. Corrupted thoughts will bring forth corrupted trees, which will bring forth corrupted fruit. People are the trees. Okay, it's why like many Bible verses to teach that. Joseph is a fruitful vineyard whose branches go over the wall. This is the idea here that there it's symbolic of something. So that's a symbol, like the tree. Yet you see the much of the pagan world, even the satanic world, will look at trees, and they'll look at trees in a negative way, like to a Christian. Because they look at it like they worship the tree as opposed to the creator of the tree, right? But this idea of the idea, the thoughts, when you speak, and when you do, because you can express an idea with your words, but you can express it with your actions as well. Okay, by what you do, by saying nothing, because we're obligated to speak as well. So when you say nothing, you're saying something as well. So and that's taught in the Bible too, where it says, when if someone makes a vow, say it's someone that's like, so say I was working for you, and I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go out this time work for you. I'm going to go and do whatever it is, work, on this day. I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to do it. And I reckon I'm going to make lots of money for you, but this is what I'm going to do. Now, if you don't say anything, but you've heard it, you've agreed by not saying anything, which in law that's where we get the tacit agreement from.
Yeah.
So, but if you say, no, I don't want you to do that. Okay, well, that nullifies the words that I've said, but you by not saying something, you would have agreed.
Yeah.
So sometimes even not saying something, but your words are actions. It's an emotion. It comes from some sort of emotional response. That's what emotion means, to stir up and push out what's in the mind. That's what if you look at the etymology of that word emotion, it means to move out, which means something internally getting expressed out.
Okay. That's interesting. The emotion that you mentioned that before as well. I'll have to check the etymology of that out. That's fascinating. Yeah, the parable of the sower I found, because I've been looking at like seeds and branches and roots for reading the Bible, and the parable of the sower it's just pretty fascinating. It's and you sort of see that happening now, where the seed planted, like the word of God that people would have heard or like expressed somehow, like someone told them or whatever, and they're like, I agree, that's cool. But as soon as it becomes uncomfortable, then it gets taken away. then they fall subject to Satan's words, his seeds, replace those seeds. And it's like, it's only shallow, it's only like sort of skin deep as opposed to having real, having the roots, you know.
It's like the light, you can't turn the light off and the darkness not come in. So as soon as you go against the truth, the evil will come into your life. It has to. It just is. That's the natural, and I would say a divine law too. So we've got that principle. We know it. We know it's true. I was gonna share a particular Bible verse, but it's fled my mind right now. So anyway,
yeah, that's all right. If it comes to you, then that's fine. So just wanted to finish up on. You're doing homeschooling at the moment. Yeah. Because there's a lot of interest in homeschooling now. How long have you been doing that, and can you touch on what that involves? Because especially now, like a lot of people are really interested, and next month or so, it's going to get a bit hairy, next year, I guess.
Yeah, I've been doing it for about. And I remembered that Bible verse I was going to share with you, but I'll share it after because it's a very good one. 4 or 5 years now we've been doing. I think 5 years, maybe 4. Definitely 4 years. Homeschooling. So I've got 3 that we homeschool because the little girl's only 2. It's not as hard as you think it is, because we thought it was going to be really hard. It is. It's a bit of work, but what they get from being at home all the time is they get to be around mum and dad, or maybe it's just mum, maybe it's just dad, because one might be working, and that is really healthy. If they've got a good home life, a good home environment, that's really healthy. They're also not isolated in a specific age group. That's not really healthy. And then you have homeschool meetups that there's lots of those going around where you meet up with people, and there'll be like families that have all different age kids, and then those different ages interact in a certain way that actually increases their intelligence and their capacity in a big way. So sometimes my 10-year-old, he's used to being the older one and the more mature one. He helps out around the house, and he's got to be a bit more of a leader, but then he'll be around older kids sometimes in these homeschool meetups, and he's got to be the younger one. He's being the younger kid now. It's really important for them to have that for their development, to know what it is to be an older one and what it is to be younger. And you don't have to spend 6 hours a day teaching them. You just need to spend a couple of hours, because they got one-on-one with mum or dad. They don't get that at school. A lot of kids are just talking and mucking around and being all of that. That's not there now. And then people say, "Oh, what about the social?" Well, if you want them to be social, they don't need to be social 6 hours a day with other kids. They can do that. You put them in some sports, or you put them in some activities. Plus, you have the homeschool meetups. You just go and you meet up with the other homeschoolers. Just get on Facebook, whatever. Look at it up online. Homeschool meetups for your electorate, and there's people that are meeting up, and they're doing all sorts of activities together.
Yeah, and seems better than dealing with a bully meeting you behind the recreation block or whatever after school to get beat up because you said or did something or walked past someone that looks funny.
And they're not going to get politically charged up. Like it's all political at school now. Like climate change, rainbow shoelace days, cross-dressing days. The climate change is a huge one. They get kids out protesting for that. How evil is that? They're telling the kids what their political views are. They're not giving them the ability to think for themselves.
Because we should all listen to teenagers, especially truant ones that are world experts apparently in these fields. But so
Greta Thunberg, right?
Oh, allegedly. We shouldn't be listening to any teenager like in the mainstream. We should be protecting them, not like putting them out in the spotlight. Even like
see how they've flip the truth over, right? We're meant to honor our mother and father, the elderly, and to give them the honor. But instead we've gone, the youth are being told that they know more than everyone else and that the older people don't know anything. That's not true at all. That's completely false. But that's what they've done, and they've done it by skewering their worldview so that the worldview of these children is only these things. They're compartmentalized in here, and they don't even recognize all this other stuff around here, which the older people know about. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's evil. It's pure evil. It's a way of it's a way of separating a generation from the other generation.
Yeah, and it's like, the young generation should be helping the older generation, taking care of them in their old age, and the older generation should be teaching the young generation what they've learned in their life. It seems pretty basic to me, and that's sort of what I find attractive about homeschooling is you're learning what's real instead of being forced to, anyway. So go on.
I was just going to say, my oldest boy, he's much more mature than other kids that go to school, because he's been with mum and dad all the time. He knows you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't say that. He knows he's got to help out. He just knows those things. I mean, he's a 10-year-old kid, but they are more mature. And I think they develop a more solid foundation.
Well, if you look at the children from like 100 years ago, like TV shows or from the 30s or whatever, like they were assistants in Congress, and like 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds, when they come of age, they're like responsible enough. They're reading books. They're like able to run errands and do all these things back then. Now it's like, I can't leave the house alone for with the society we're in now. But yeah.
You look at a grade 6 exam from 150 years ago, you wouldn't get 50% probably. I'm not saying you're not intelligent, but they were so far ahead of us in their ability to write. They could write like a lawyer, better than a lawyer now. Like a good lawyer, the way they would write a letter, these kids could do it in grade 6. They understood how to do that. They understood penmanship. I've got a book from the 1700s that a friend's lent to me. It's from one of their family members, and it's actually a Masonic book, right? It's got all these Masonic oaths that they've made. It's all sort of in code, but you see the penmanship and the way these people could write. They were so far ahead. You've got to give them credit. They were so far ahead, and we only have such a short attention span. We don't read books. We've been given that 5 to 10 minute, maybe not even 10-minute attention span. We use emojis now. It's like it's the deliberate dumbing down of our society to make it dumb.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to. It would have been way better to grow up back then and learn like they did, but instead of like we got decent schooling, I get, or not really, but sort of self-taught and figure stuff out yourself.
We have the information, for sure. We have the ability, but we have to be driven to learn.
Yeah, and the hubris of having devices and screens and the internet, we think we're smarter than them, but it's like we're not. Just have a look at everything that's going on. We're not. Yeah, it's just a illusion, a trick. So anything else you want to finish up on? That Bible quote that you remember, if you remember.
John chapter 18, and Jesus says, "My kingdom is not of this world." And he says, he's talking to Pilate. He's the one that said, "Okay, crucify the Messiah." And he said, "To this end was I born." This is what Christ was saying, Jesus was saying. "To this end was I born, and for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness of the truth. Those who are of the truth hear my voice." So there's those that are of the truth, and there's those that aren't. And then the next verse, Pontius Pilate, the Roman authority, says, "What is truth?" He asks the question, what is truth? He doesn't understand that truth is an internal concept and an internal idea. It's the one thing that internally that you can't physically see, that tells you, no, I can't go along with that and do what you expect me to do. Or I have to do this because something inside of me tells me I must, because it's the right thing to do. That's the truth that's inside of you. Pontius Pilate, the Roman authority, didn't understand what that was. But the Messiah, Jesus, he says, I came to bear witness of the truth, to be a physical manifestation in this world of what truth is. And those who are of the truth will hear my voice. They will see these concepts, they'll read them, they'll understand them, and they'll make sense of them. And they will listen to that voice from within. And that's the separation of, like you said, with the sower. There's the seed that goes on the good ground, and then there's the other seeds that don't. Same with the wheat and the tares. And I think that's where we're at in this world now. We're in a time where I truly believe that God is separating his people from the people of this world. Because like Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world, and the kingdom of God is within you. It's another quote from the Bible. Well, that means there's something out of this world that's inside of us. And some of us are connected to it, and some of us are not. And we're seeing who those people are. And I think by the end of this, we're going to be so far apart in two camps.
Yeah, very well said. All right. Thanks for that. We'll leave it there. Thanks a lot for the chat. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, guys, for listening and watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Cheers. Us. Alrighty, guys. I hope you enjoyed episode 33 with Nick as much as I enjoyed doing it. Yeah, be sure to check out Nick's links down below, his website and all that. Be sure to check out my links down below and all that jazz. I've also got a new Telegram group that I set up where I'll be posting all this sort of stuff, and so we can chat and all that sort of thing. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you next time. Us.
So you're a jiu-jitsu guy?
Yeah.
Yeah? Who do you train with?
I train under Pedro Sower. It's in it's leverage jiu-jitsu with Philip Grapsis.
Okay.
Down in Thomastown.
Yeah.
Used to train with Murat at Nexus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just. Yeah, that's sort of my.
He's
my
very
image.
good.
Yeah, he's good, and the Pedro Sower lineage is pretty good in Melbourne. It's pretty good at the moment, but yeah, like he was voted the best teacher in the world. But yeah, he's awesome when he comes down and gives seminars and that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know all the jiu-jitsu sort of community as well as, obviously I was an MMA guy, so.
All right, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that, mate. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's just something slightly a bit more than just all the COVID talk and stuff. Yeah, but yeah.
I mean, it's hard to not talk about the COVID stuff because it incorporates every. It's gotten into every part of our life, right? But yeah, it is good to talk about different things and.
Yeah, and then weaves all back together. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because like all the law stuff and the Bible stuff, it's all from the same source, and all the like what you were saying about truth, and that's like from the first word, the logos that God spoke into the universe. That's the truth. He spoke into, and it's unfolding over the millennia, whatever.
It's the rock in the he who builds his house upon the rock. And he built the wise man builds his house upon the rock, which the house is you, right? You're the house, right? And the foolish man builds his house upon the sand, right? And when the floods came and the winds blow, which the wind just means spirit. It's a pneumatas, which means wind and spirit, or ruach in Hebrew, which means wind or spirit, comes and the house built on the rocks will stand, right? The rock is the truth. It's those people that are built on the truth. I will not do anything against what I know is right inside and against the truth. And those that are built more firmly on the truth because they've taken time to really understand and learn are solid. They can't be beaten. They can't be broken. But those that are on the sandy foundation who today I believe this, but tomorrow I believe that, and I'll believe whatever the TV tells me to believe. They're like, when the winds and the floods come, they're just wiped out. They've got nothing anchoring them there.
Yeah, and that's like the Jiu-Jitsu triangle. Like that, you got to get the good base, the basic moves at the bottom, and then you're building up and up and building up to a triangle. Not the one-eyed Illuminati triangle, but just you need that foundation. Otherwise, if you don't have a good foundation, everything's just going to fall apart. And then your triangle will be smaller and smaller and just topple over.
Yeah.
Or pyramid or
definitely.
whatever. All right.
Cool. Do you have a favorite submission that you use?
Well, because I do a lot of it one-hand at the moment, for the last probably 7-8 years or something. But I think the guillotine is probably. So I seem to find the guillotine way in a lot of positions really quickly, especially with my left arm. But triangles probably my go-to from the guard. I'm pretty good at the triangles, but my hips injured at the moment, so it's on one side. It's a bit wonky, but
that's how I beat Callum Potter. Was a triangle.
Okay. Yeah.
In our fight. Yeah. And but it was just the wrestling. Just he didn't like the wrestle. And he got real good after that too. That was earlier in his sort of fight career. The triangle was probably my favourite submission was the triangle.
Yeah, well, it's like the best one. I mean, the Mare Leon's probably the king of, well, that's what it's called, but the triangle, and like over the last few years, refined it in certain ways that it tightens it a lot and just adjust the position, and instead of just doing it front on, you move it just move a slight little angle, and it just tightens everything up, and then brings it all in, and then where your feet are pointed versus where you're, rather than having it like that, it's more like that, and it tightens right up. If you got your toes pointing in the same direction, but that's my favorite.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, and then there's so many different variations from there. You can turn it into an armbar. Kimura.
And then omoplata. It's good to transition one, and then you go back to the triangle, and then back to the armbar, and it's always try to be one step ahead, if you can. It's a bit hard. Like I'm like just using half my body to roll, because the joints on my right side are the moment a bit wonky, so it's a lot of it's just one-handed stuff.
So you're impaired grappler. So you have some sort of impairment.
I've got arthritis. Like my wrist doesn't bend.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, and it gets really painful when I use it or it gets hit or something. It started off in the elbow. Doesn't.
Have you tried those magnets? Those magnets on the joints?
Not the magnets. I'm doing a PEMF trial with someone in January, I think. So
I've got these magnets that I use for when I get pain in my back and stuff, and I know the guy that actually makes them.
Okay.
And he sells them all over to physios, but mostly over in Spain and Germany. But he's just over here. I've got a whole lot of these magnets. I can send you some just to use. Give it a go.
Yeah.
If you just email me your address, I'll just I'll send them off to you.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
And all you do is you just tape it on.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I kid you not, my back when my back's bad, my lower back, I can be just completely out. I put these on. It's like I know it's still there, but most of the pain is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not taking any. You don't take any drugs or anything. It doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've got like a pole, an arrow pointing up. So you want to have that either pointing sort of down on your hand or up, but not to the side, down or up. And
which way the energy flows going, or
it doesn't matter if it's up or down, as long as it's going this way or the other way. That way,
All right, that'll be cool.
Because I got a whole lot of them that he gave me for free. So
all right, no worries. Give that a try. Always looking for new things. I think I need to quit the coffee though.
Coffee maybe it's very acidic.
But well, like you said, it's the thing or like before we were talking about the need to just speak it, and then once I've decided and say it out loud, then then that's when I'll do it kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
for sure.